Hey everyone, welcome to this video, and what I want to go through today is a pretty hard truth, honestly, about why most e-commerce businesses fail. Now, I've been in business for 13 years. I started an e-commerce business in 2013 with my brother. We started from our kitchen bench, we left our corporate jobs, and that business has since gone on to do multiple seven figures per year. And I've also helped over 250 e-commerce brands up to this point. Over the last 3 years, hit record revenue months. And so the ones that I see that say don't get help or don't invest in themselves or their business or progress and honestly just slowly die a painful death by 1,000 cuts are making this pivotal mistake. So my message to you in this video is to ensure that you don't make the same mistake as well. If you're on that point of, 2K, 3K, 5K, even 10K a month, but not necessarily say profitable, not necessarily being like, is this a viable thing? I've been at it for maybe a little while, or maybe just getting into it, or maybe you've been in it for a long time, but not getting to where you want to go fast enough. This is going to be specifically for you. So this came off the back of a conversation I had with my community just this morning, and we were talking about struggling conversion rates. We were talking about deficiencies with ads, and this particular person, this particular client, couldn't get to the bottom of what was actually going on, right? Hence, obviously, why she's in the program, why she's getting help, okay? And she's relatively new to the program. And so the way that the actual conversation went was we talked about initially, let's call it the outcome, okay? So we were looking at the marketing, right? Meaning like our ads, our organics, emails, and then we were looking at our assets or her assets. So that is like her social profiles and especially her website, right? Those are the fixed things, assets, and the marketing is obviously, as it says, marketing, okay? Driving traffic to the site. From what I could see, sure, there was a couple of things that were wrong with, say, the ads and the organics and stuff like that. But what it actually came down to as I dug deeper was something foundational, fundamental. Okay, so what sits above in your business, the marketing and the assets, is our foundations. And what I'd specifically say there is honestly like who we're targeting, our target audience, and the messaging that we use. Okay, so think about it like this. If you go straight into creating assets and straight into marketing with a fundamentally flawed foundation, you're going to be sending the wrong people with the wrong message at the wrong time to your site, and you're not going to get results. There's a really big disconnect. Okay, and this is what happens over time. As I said before, this is the biggest mistake people make when they jump into business and e-commerce business. Like, this is so easy. You just set up a website, then you drive traffic to the website. Yeah, it can be that easy. And sometimes people strike dumb luck, honestly, if they haven't considered what I'm talking about. But the majority of people will fail because they haven't been through the foundational, fundamental aspect to understand who their product is for, how it fits into their lives, their, wants, needs, pains, desires, and translate that through their assets and their marketing as well. Right, so that's the point we got to with this particular client. And so that's where the conversation went. It was like, okay, you're selling this particular product and you're selling it to people who see it as a, comparable product to, say, the big box stores such as like Kmart or Target or Walmart or something like that, where they're looking at price point, they're price sensitive, and they're like neither here nor there about the product in and of itself. And so as we did dig deeper, she started to talk about customers she had in the past, and she talked about the reviews that they had left, and we kind of got to a certain point where she just started reeling off all this stats and data about how it's helped her customers with, say, arthritis and other literal pain problems, and how it solved that problem for them. And so it was just like a light bulb moment for her. And then I was obviously, this is where it was leading me, but people in the community as well who were actually jumping on this call together. And it was a big realization point, is like, okay, like I understand who my customer is. I've just never been able to, or haven't up to this point, focused on these particular people, this particular problem. Okay. So that was, again, a light bulb moment. And so the advice then was, okay, cool. You need to solidify, understand, clarify who your product is for, what problem it's solving, and use the language they're using, such as arthritis or trouble with, or do you suffer with, and be able to put that into your, firstly, assets, meaning like you're in the right place if you're on my website because you've got XYZ problem and this is the solution. And of course, the precursor to that is the marketing as well through the ads and any other email and organic material, right? So there's that congruency from foundations to marketing to assets to conversions. It's a very simple process. But like I said before, if you don't realize or understand or emphasize or work really hard and spend time at the foundational level, we can do as much as we like. We can basically bash our head against the wall trying to get people and sell people into our products and our solutions. But if you have the advantage of being very problem solution, pain point avoidant, then you should be utilizing that as much as possible, because then you create what I call a market of one, right? You're not compared to the big boxes. You're not compared to the big chains who can get their products imported for this amount and sell it for this amount, whereas you don't have that advantage due to volumes and things. Okay, so I see this at all levels. As I say, it's not even like restricted to people doing less than 10K per month. It's like, if you can't get through that next level, refining your market is really, really important. Understanding them is really important. Then not making assumptions about that they're just going to get it, because they don't. You have to literally communicate with them, say the words, speak the language, talk the way that they talk, act the way they act, show the way that resonates with them. We talked about even content in ads and on website of, if that's your specific demographic, call it like 50 plus, for example, then show people who are 50 plus using your products, putting it in action in the wild, as I say. That's called resonance. That's like the picture says 1,000 words type stuff. So that's really crucial. Now, part B to this, and this is what I would consider like, let's call it an objection or resistance to people when I give them this advice about niching and being really specific, is their fear of cutting off other parts of the market. And this is unfounded in my experience. I've experienced this with Karmic, the cold pressed juice company, where we said, we're going to have no fruits in our juices, right? All of the market was doing fruit juices, yummy tasting fruit juices, bananas, apples, kiwis, whatever you wanted to put in it, it could be in there. But our mentality, our point of difference was no fruits, because fructose, high levels of fructose intake in a short period of time, spikes insulin levels, spikes your blood sugars. It's actually counterproductive to what you're trying to do when you're doing a juice cleanse. That was our industry, okay? So we were completely different. We separated ourselves. We became a market of one. Now, that did polarize. So people who didn't like fruit, like not having fruit, who really weren't familiar with it, didn't like the taste of just vegetable juice, we polarized them. But what it didn't do was sacrifice our business model, and it didn't actually hamstring us in any way. The only thing it did do was separate us from everybody else. We got our core people who knew what we were talking about, who believed in what we were doing, and they had a great experience. And then people started to come across. We started to convert people that we thought we were alienating through our segmentation, through our niching. And ironically, we're able to grow ridiculously large through that process. But if we'd never done that in the first place, if we'd never defined ourselves, if we tried to be just better than the person on the other side, we would be dead. The business would actually be dead, because we would have no point of difference. We're just trying to compete and steal market share and just be better, or rather tell people that we're better, which that falls on such deaf ears. If you say that you're better, or you're higher quality, or you're this or that, no one believes you. I'm sure you are good quality. I'm sure you are better. Like, it doesn't actually matter from a customer's perspective. But if you say, I am completely different because of this reason or XYZ reason, that is something they'll come to you for, because they're like, I've never seen that before, or that makes sense. You know, I'm really glad that you got this solution for me. So this is where I'm coming back to this client here that we were talking about, is that was that realization, that light bulb moment. Attract the right people, a specific person, and you'll pull across momentum, or at the very least, your market will be way bigger than what you think. I mean, unless you're doing millions of dollars per month, the market is way bigger than what you think. You just have to trust that and be comfortable with pushing to one target demographic, one product where needed. And honestly, like, one channel should do it. It doesn't matter what channel at that point. If your foundations are really solid, your messaging and your target demographic are really solidified and clear, you can basically communicate that all the way through whatever marketing you're actually using to your assets that I mentioned before. So look, I hope this is helpful for you. If it was, obviously I'd love a like, I'd love a subscribe to my channel, because I'm sharing things like this all the time, and especially when it's, you know, fresh in my mind through conversations or experience, it can be really valuable. So I'd love to have you follow along the journey. If you want to know more about how we help e-commerce business, you can click on the link below, check it out if it's of interest. But other than that, appreciate you being here. Thanks for watching till the end, and I'll catch you in the next one.